language and reading. So here are some key questions for preview and review to give yourself a chance to do some self-quizzing. If you self-quiz before a lecture, a talk, a book, that's called generation or prediction. And of course, self-quizzing afterwards is retrieval practice. So here are the key questions for self-quizzing. Question number 1, how many people in the world cannot read? And what percentage of them are girls? What are the positive and negative Matthew effects? How do people generally learn false information? What is fluid and crystallized and general intelligence? And how do we get more crystallized intelligence? And what predicts a smarter future for our children? So let's imagine that this is Jamila. She's from Nepal. She is needy, poor, and she can't read. Her brothers and sisters can't read. Her parents can't read. And in her mountain village, there is one school with 450 students, and the school has fewer than 20 books. The books were left behind by hikers, and so really she can't read them anyway because they're written for native-speaking adults, and they're written in English. So of the 750 million people in the world who cannot read, 66% of them are girls or women like Jamila. So what will happen to her? Will she escape poverty? Does she have a bright future? And if she learns how to read and write, will that help her gain the knowledge and skills and information that she needs to succeed in life? Well, this question about this kind of person was met and answered by a famous man by the name of John Wood. He was a manager, a high-level manager at Microsoft, and he went on a trekking expedition into Nepal. And he tells a story of how he left Microsoft to help people gain the skill of reading, especially girls. So Jamila's story illustrates the experience of John Wood. Since he met children like Jamila in 1998, he started a journey to change the world one book and one child at a time. His organization, Room to Read, has created 37,000 partner schools. It has delivered 26 million books, benefiting 14.3 million children. Probably that information is old and it's gone up since then. So what is the main point of today's talk? Reading works. It helps you get smarter, healthier, richer, and younger. It also gives you more verbal and emotional intelligence, and it helps create more equality for girls. So let's look at the question of illiteracy and poverty. Poverty causes illiteracy, so there's less money, fewer books. Less money, poorer schools, and there's less reading, therefore. And illiteracy also causes poverty. Less reading, less learning, less knowledge, fewer skills. And so we have this vicious cycle going kind of both ways. So what are the benefits of literacy? Well, if you can read, you show better health-related behavior. You can get better information about how to stay healthy. Wealth. Reading brings economic benefits and better jobs. Equality. The power of reading brings equality for women. So oftentimes in impoverished situations, the girls are asked to stay home and help around the house instead of going to school. And so education and learning to read can help bring them more equality. So how many of the people in the world cannot read? The answer is about 750 million, right? And you can see here the percentages, how they're broken up. But the good news is, since the 1800s, literacy has gone up. This is taken from the book Factfulness. I strongly recommend it. It's sort of like positive psychology, happiness therapy through statistics, because the world in many ways has gotten better. And here's one example. From 10% being able to read in 1800, now we have 86% of the world who are literate. So it's getting better, but still a big problem. Obviously, 750 million people is a large number. And one of the problems with not being able to read and being able to read is this idea of Matthew effects, which has been explained and promoted by Professor Keith Stanovich. It's the idea that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The more you read, the more you benefit, and the less you read, the less you benefit. And so there's this kind of effect that happens as a child has trouble with the spelling to sound code. She is exposed to much less text than her peers. She works with materials that are too difficult, and so there's this downward spiral. This image comes from blog allaboutlearningpress.com. All right, so you can see how it goes down like that. She experiences a negative spiral. She can't easily decode a text. She lacks practice. She works with more and more difficult text because she's going up through the grades. And what's the result? Reading is not rewarding. Reading volume is low. So this is a Matthew effect. The idea of Matthew effects comes from a place in the Bible where it says the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Rich people know how to get rich. And one of the ways that they do that is through reading, right? So that's the negative spiral. Here's the positive spiral. If kids get reading skill early, they read more. Thus, they will develop cognitive abilities more quickly than those who read less or those who don't read. So the initial timing of reading is a key. Starting early, right, is good. Learning to read sooner is better. And so the rich get richer. And you can see this positive spiral. One, the person enjoys reading, gets a lot of practice, develops automaticity. Reading becomes a pleasant activity. Grow vocabulary, good attitude at school, more motivation to read. This spiral picture is again from the blog allaboutlearningpress.com. So books are important, especially today when we love more than anything our smartphones. I, for one, am addicted to it. But I do still read every day, right? And because books are cultural treasures, here's a picture of, I think, a library at Yale University. Books are treasures. But they're not always treated as treasures. Sometimes they have been burned or just neglected. So the question is, for all of us, how much do you read? And we can measure the treasure of books in reading volume. Reading volume predicts vocabulary and knowledge differences. So it's not just an indicator of ability. It works as an independent source of cognitive differences. So reading creates cognitive differences. It makes us smarter, right? So you can see here differences in reading. This is an old study from Anderson, Wilson, and Fielding, 1988. But you can see that very few people would read for more than an hour a day. But if they do, they're reading about 4.3 million words. How many minutes per day do you read? And you can see, for example, in the 70th percentile, reading just about 10 minutes a day, you get 622,000 words per day. But you can see that it goes down, and some people don't read at all. And so the key point to remember from this is that those who read more know more. Those who read more are smarter. Reading powerfully predicts knowledge differences. Why does person A know more than person B? Because of reading, most likely. So what do we do instead of reading? Probably, if you're like me, you watch television or play games. But what's wrong with television?
We just want our daughter back.
We just want our daughter back. So reading versus television. Researchers Stenovich and Cunningham interviewed 268 UCB students. That's University of California, Berkeley. It's a good school. And they asked a very simple question. Are there more Muslims or Jews in the world today? And what did the students say? What do you think? 69% of the students said there were more Jews, more Jewish people. Why would they say that? Because the answer is completely wrong. There are 1.8 billion Muslims in the world, 24% of the world, and only 14 million Jews in the world. So why would people say there are more Jews in the world than Muslims when the answer is obviously completely and totally and utterly wrong? Well, the answer is reading volume was associated with the higher scores on the question. And what about the lower scores? Those who scored lower also had higher television exposure. And researchers asked similar questions, and they found similar results. And this is what they came up with. This is kind of an academic quote, and I'll give a translation of it. The cognitive anatomy of misinformation appears to be one of too little exposure to print or reading and over-reliance on television for information about the world. So we learn false information not by reading, but by relying too much on television for information. And so the people who gave that wrong answer about how many Jews and Muslims are in the world, the wrong answers correlated to more television watching. And probably in American television, Israel and Jewish people are emphasized a lot, and so people made that mistake. Reading predicts vocabulary differences. After the most basic words, how do we get a rich vocabulary? Children's books, primetime television, or conversation with educated people? In other words, which has a richer vocabulary, children's books or primetime television? Which has a richer vocabulary, children's books or conversations with even educated people? Well, here's what Stanovich found. Keith Stanovich again. Children's books have 50% more rare words than TV shows for adults and the conversation of college graduates. So children's books are a great way to learn a rich and powerful vocabulary. So we can learn 3 times as many words from popular magazines than from TV and adult conversations. And this basically shows the differences between spoken and written language. This slide's a little bit difficult to see, but you see the word display, invariably, literal, exposure, luxury, equation, gravity, hormone, legitimate, participation, portray, dominant, infinite, provoke, reluctantly, dominance, equate, relinquish. These words do not appear in 2 large oral corpora. In other words, these words do not appear in spoken language very much. In this case, in this one particular corpora, they don't appear, but they do appear in written corpora. So written language uses rarer and richer vocabulary. So how do we get more word power? The answer is read, because texts are rich in words. Read a lot and get much exposure to print. That's how we get more vocabulary. Let's talk about intelligence. So G is a term or a formalization or a symbol that we use to refer to general intelligence. And then we have this idea of fluid intelligence, which is G with a small f. Fluid intelligence is the ability to think logically, to solve problems in new situations, to solve puzzles. And then there's G, small c, crystallized intelligence. It's acquired knowledge like vocabulary, general information, and experience. So with reading and intelligence, reading builds GC in a massive way. And that's independent of education and ability. So this is independent of fluid intelligence as well. So reading is uniquely able to build this GC or crystallized intelligence. Reading makes us smarter. All right, so here is a cartoon from the Snoopy or Peanuts, Charles Schulz. See that building there? That's the library. If you ever want to borrow a book, all you have to do is go there and tell them which one you want, and they'll let you take it home. Free? Absolutely free. Sort of makes you wonder what they're up to. So a little bit of irony there. If crystallized intelligence is how we define intelligence, and almost all people say that it is, the key point is that reading makes you more intelligent. Reading makes you smarter. So don't say to yourself, oh, I was born this way, I'm not smart. That's a mistake. That's a fixed mindset. Say, oh, I need to learn things, I should read. And that's what everybody should say, because we all have room to learn. Stanovich and others and his colleagues compared college students and his senior citizens. They compared fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. And who is usually better at fluid intelligence and who is usually better at crystallized intelligence? What did they find? So reading equalized the groups. If we control for reading, it eliminates the differences. Reading covered even for the negative effects of aging. And this brings up an interesting point that I heard from Dr. Stephen Krashen in a talk once. So you can use this powerful formula to fight aging. 1, read. 2, read in a foreign language. And 3, read in a foreign language while you enjoy coffee. And apparently that also can keep your mind alert and fresh and renewed. All right, let's finish up. We're almost done. So who carries 3 bags of books like this when he travels? Hint, very rich man who probably has his own airplane. That's a lot of books to carry. His name is Bill Gates, and he said a while ago, some point, this quote from him, I really had a lot of dreams when I was a kid, and I think a great deal of that grew out of the fact that I had a chance to read a lot. And if you go to Bill Gates's blog, it's called Gates Notes, you'll see he's always promoting different books, 5 summer books and other things to do at home. So he always recommends books. Bill Gates is a big reader, and I'd say he's a pretty smart guy. And one of the reasons why he's a pretty smart guy is that he reads a lot. So here's the reading message. Start reading young and start your kids young. If you are thinking about buying a house, consider how close the library is so you can go and check out lots of free books. Starting young predicts a lifetime of literacy. It's not just one's ability or genetics or the way they are born that predicts a smart future. Reading predicts a smarter future. So develop a love of reading, and you can do that today. Start reading today. Go out and read a book. Thank you for listening.